Inside the game in Woldberry Forest, sunlight shines through the trees. Breathless and hurt, a young man faces the situation with difficulty. Hidden, he observes a terrible scene. Several warriors were defeated by a brute. A man wonders what to do since the target hasn't appeared. Your companion looks thoughtful. With a cold look, the woman makes a decision. She orders them to finish him off. Immediately, the muscular giant raises his axe ready to attack. The victim on the ground widens his eyes, realizing his imminent end. Suddenly, a figure appears at high speed to intervene. Then Giant appears. Your friends shout your name in relief when you arrive. The soldiers recognize him as Hurkin. They shout for him to decide to attack together. Hurkin faces enemies with glowing eyes, ready for battle. Moving quickly, he attacks the soldiers. The broth starts to spread around the place. Without difficulty, the hooded man overtakes opponents lying on the ground. Hurkin confidently states that attacking him together makes no difference. They just can't beat him. His real name is An Jayan, the well-known hero slayer. One of the friends apologizes to Jayan. He says it's their fault for falling into the ambush. Surprised, the white-haired young man shakes his head. He then asks why the other is apologizing. A faintly glowing green energy surrounds his outstretched hand. Offering help, the protagonist says he is fine. He just asks his companion to get up. Supporting Jayan, the protagonist comments that it really wasn't their fault. He then directs the blame to the useless member who always lags behind. According to him, the girl does not have the necessary skills. In front of the woman, the protagonist asks if she is right. She is useless. She remains silent without responding. Stepping forward, the girl in the blue outfit comments on the touching friendship. She asks why they are acting so sentimental. Together with her two companions, the woman advances towards the group. She begins to say that even if the trash accumulates. Finishing her speech, she states that nothing will come of this. We find out that her name is Sira, also known as the Thunder Queen. The protagonist laughs and teases her by asking who grinds her teeth and attacks every time she is defeated by the trash. Sir tells him to watch his mouth. He just warns her not to regret it and cry later. With a confident smile, the protagonist asks about regret. At the same time, he activates a device on his wrist that begins to glow. A robotic voice says slot on his blue dice wrap around your body. Clearly some ability was activated. Instantly, the young man appears in new black and gold armor. He also wears a mask and wields a different sword. Laughing beneath his mask, he states that regret is something only weaklings like her feel. Completely shocked and angered, Sira calls him an arrogant bastard. She then orders her companions to finish him off. Even when pierced by a sword, he laughs without realizing it. He questions whether the enemy never learns and states that he can never truly be defeated. Suddenly, a different look takes over the masked man's face. Something seems to have changed in his expression. Confused, the masked man coughs. He notices other people watching in the shadows behind him. Red juice drips from the blade. Various system notifications appear warning of rapid loss of HP and restriction of movement. Falling to the ground, Jalin questions the meaning of this. A voice apologizes for having deceived the boy. Revealing his betrayal, the man in the fur coat justifies his actions. He says everyone needs to earn a living and asks them not to be hated. The protagonist is completely shocked by the betrayal. Suddenly, he hears a mocking laugh. A woman with long dark hair and a blue uniform appears laughing loudly. His laugh is full of contempt. Approaching, the woman calls the protagonist stupid. She asks if he really believed in the fantasy of friendship, because money is more important. Standing over the fallen man, the woman reveals her name, Hurkin. She threatens to take him out of the game, chasing him every time he enters. With a confident smile, the antagonist states, not even he will be able to progress from there. Falling to the ground, the protagonist breathes with difficulty. Your enemy reminds you of your own words about being useless outside of the game. With an evil look, the antagonist mocks. Unfortunately for him, he ended up being trash again. His hand sinks into the earth with force. An angry sound escapes through his teeth. Furious, Giant charges at his opponent, demanding that she shut that mouth immediately. Intense eyes stare into each other as red droplets fly through the air. Surrounded by the forest, the boy is attacked by several people, while the girl on the floor thanks everyone. Fallen and injured, Giant asks why the attack. He reminds everyone how much he dedicated himself to the guild. Angry, one of the attackers tells Jayan to die quickly, revealing that they offered millions for his head. In disbelief, the boy wonders if it's all just for money, remembering again how much he did for them. The young man's face shows all the anger and feeling of betrayal. The traitors watch him with evil smiles. Jayan asks if they weren't a family, cursing the situation. The screen goes dark, showing several red danger and death warnings. A large warning message informs you that he has died. As a penalty, you will not be able to log in for 48 hours. Suddenly, Jayan wakes up panting, ripping off the VR equipment. He is in a messy room. With a look of despair, he realizes that he has lost everything. This was the Warlord's virtual world. The game Warlord became a huge global success, as we see in the live broadcast of a dragon attack. Being an AI virtual reality game that makes a lot of money, Warlord was the only thing he was good at. Unlike the game in real life, it was always called trash. After defeating a green monster, a man praises the white-haired boy's level, calling him amazing at the game. Reaching, the man invites the boy to form a guild. This was the only place he felt he belonged, or at least that was the case. However, the memory disappears. Now in anger, he crumples something in his hand. The young man goes over the papers thinking about how he will find them and eliminate them all. Looking at his cell phone, a call from Dongzu appears. The protagonist questions why he went through so many difficulties. All this just so those bastards can live well without him. The pedestrian signal turns red when a truck approaches quickly. Regrettably, he thinks that if he had known how things would turn out, he wouldn't have done it. Tears stream down the boy's face. He looks completely desperate in that moment of realization. Cross the street at high speed. The young man reflects that he should never have cared about anyone else in the first place. Suddenly, the truck hits him head-on. He falls, spilling the red broth across the crosswalk. Screams are heard in the background saying someone has been hit. Falling to the ground, the boy agonizes. Your broken cell phone shows that the call cannot be completed. He regrets that, of all things, he was run over by a garbage truck. Despite the pain, the young man grits his teeth. He thinks to himself that he can't leave now. The memory of the traitor Dongsu resurfaces. He told the protagonist to leave. He mentioned that they offered hundreds of millions to eliminate him. The boy curses him as the bastard who set him up. Another memory of a girl with a mischievous smile appears. His thoughts begin to form the idea of what he needs. Take brutal revenge on them all. That's the final determination in their eyes as life slips away. Suddenly, a dark screen with loading circles appears. The words connection and user verification in progress appear. Finally, a system window opens. A message welcomes user Hirkin. The protagonist opens his eyes slowly, without understanding where you are. A system window suddenly appears. The mission is to complete the tutorial by surviving the Minotaur. Below, the menacing monster watches the fallen bodies. Surprised, the white-haired boy questions the tutorial mission. At that moment, someone calls him a newbie. Immediately, the other players tell him to stop traveling. They must unite to take down the menacing, roaring creature. Analyzing the situation, they realize that it is impossible to defeat the animal alone. The three will need to fight together to win. Platinum reminds us that the Minotaur was removed 5 years ago. It was a very difficult boss for the tutorial. One of the players questions this date. Falling to the ground, the protagonist hears that he is talking nonsense. The Warlord game was released just 10 months ago. This leaves him even more lost. Processing the information, he thinks about 10 months. Nothing seems to make sense in your head. Muttering, he accepts that it was only 10 months. His companions find his behavior very strange. Ignoring the strangeness, the player tries to create a plan. When he gives the signal, everyone must attack together. But Platinum simply drops the sword. Turning his back, he begins to walk calmly. The other player asks what he thinks he is doing. Suddenly, the boy runs towards danger. The allies scream, asking if he has gone crazy. Without listening, he continues to advance against the Minotaur. The creature prepares a powerful blow. The players shout that we will miss you. The giant axe comes down with full force. At the last second, a bluish energy surrounds the protagonist. With a penetrating gaze, he faces the monster head-on. The blue aura appears to protect him from the impending impact. With a powerful blow from the shining sword, the protagonist strikes the enemy. Lots of red broth flies everywhere. Shortly after the blow, the giant monster collapses, completely defeated. Two spectators are completely shocked. One of them asks if the boy defeated the monster with a single blow. When called, the protagonist turns his face. He looks a little uncomfortable and has red spots on his face. Impressed, the spectator praises the boy's talent, then extends his hand offering an invitation to his guild. Faced with the proposal, the protagonist's gaze becomes cold and intense. He looks suspicious. Turning his back, the young man refuses the offer. He claims he made a decision recently, leaving the others confused. With a slight smile on his face, he recalls his recent decision. The decision was clear: if I trusted people again in this life. With red eyes, he completes his thought. I would just be a dog if I made that mistake. We then discover the name of the protagonist, Hirkin, the executioner of heroes, who has apparently regressed in time. The scene changes and Hirkin awakens. He is sitting in some sort of futuristic capsule with a visor on his head. Surprised, he looks around. The place looks very familiar to Hirkin. Hirkin realizes where he is. It's a store full of gear equipment with a lot of people around. Thinking better, he remembers, 5 years ago I was broke and I used to play on the demo devices in these stores. The penny finally drops. Hirkin wonders if he really managed to go back in time. Then he grabs the virtual reality helmet, because he has things to do. Running through the crowd, the boy remains determined. After all, he has 5 years of future information and also a lot of experience. Using this, your revenge will be guaranteed. Arriving at the counter, he plays his card, ordering the base V-Gear model. The attendant seems surprised by your haste. She offers to help with the purchase. With a strange smile, he is already thinking about his next steps, ignoring the girl who tries to get his attention. Unfortunately, the girl informs him that he doesn't have enough money. The boy's face turns pale at the news. A small word of frustration almost escapes. Damn, it's true, he remembers. If I had money, I would have already bought the equipment. That's why he was there in the first place. Desperately, he wonders what to do. Making money now would take a long time. Your mind then asks you what you are waiting for. Looking at an ad, he sees a motivational message. The strong never fear challenges and hesitation is a luxury. Becoming a warlord is the goal. The model in the ad is number 1, Seer, Queen of Thunder. In front of a giant screen, the name Warlord shines brightly. The boy looks at the panel without saying anything, lost in thoughts. A dark voice calls him trash again. He just silently agrees. Decided, the young man knows there is no time to waste. Arriving at your home, the sun is already setting. Inside the room, a futuristic capsule catches the eye. A technician confirms the installation of the V-Gear equipment. He says goodbye and leaves. Considered, the protagonist looks for the fastest way to get money. Then he finds a suspicious card offering loans to players. Sitting in a dark room, he asks if he can have 10 million won. The man confirms, smiling. However, the loan shark shows that there is a condition. Quickly, a sharp object passes through the card on the table. With an evil look, the man warns him that his life will become hell if he doesn't pay. Drops of sweat run down the boy's face, visibly tense about the situation. Clutching the letter in your hand, he decides to ignore the danger and move on. Put on the helmet, the young man says he would go to hell to catch those bastards. The connection begins. Memories of unpleasant faces arise in your mind. Nervous, he shouts to connect quickly. While the digital effects shine, a message appears. The system is identifying the user. Identification is confirmed. His name is Herkin. Welcome to the Warlord game. Herkin comments that it has been a while. He waits for someone who should arrive soon. Her name appears to be Ari. A message congratulates you for passing the tutorial. Suddenly, a golden light begins to appear in the skies. Of this light, a female figure with long blonde hair begins to descend. The woman introduces herself as Ariadne. She is there to help with your career. Herkin confirms that it is herself. Extending his shining hand, Ariadne calls the young man an adventurer. The guide informs him that he now needs to choose between the basic classes. According to Ariadne, there are 3 basic classes available. The skills he chooses to level will determine the specific class he will have in the future. The first option is Warrior. They fight on the front lines with bladed weapons. Ariadne recommends it to anyone looking for action. Herkin thinks about Warrior. He knows he would level up quickly because he has done it before. But playing alone becomes difficult later, so he passes this class. Next is the Cleric. They use healing power to buff and heal others. Herkin also passes this one. With the emergence of few friends, the protagonist refuses to take care of others. The blonde then smiles, holding up a shiny item. She says there is only one choice left. Up close, the girl wishes him to have a fun trip. Launching golden energy, the girl surrounds the protagonist, leaving him surprised by the power. Golden threads of power completely cover him. The system informs you that a basic class has been chosen, starting teleportation to the corresponding tower. In an imposing tower, the boy appears, being welcomed by a floating old man who seeks knowledge. Introducing himself as Galko, the old man reveals himself to be the guide on the path of magic, a mage-class NPC. Galko then asks what kind of magic the young man wants to learn. Without hesitation, the protagonist responds to black magic. The request leaves the guide completely confused. The old man thinks he heard wrong about earth magic because of his age. But the boy repeats that he wants to learn black magic. Shocked, the guide asks where the boy heard about this, explaining that it is powerful, but leads the user's soul to ruin. The young man claims to be aware. With a firm look, the protagonist says he knows the risks, and that's why he asks the old man to teach him. It has to be black magic. Visibly nervous, the guide seems very shaken by the request. Suddenly, the old man turns into a skull enveloped in dark energy, revealing that this was what he needed for everything to go well. The skeletal Galko comments that it has been a while, ever since a brat chose to follow this dark path. A mysterious figure instructs the boy to access the skill book if he is really ready. Warning that the choice must be made carefully, the protagonist is thoughtful for a moment. Ignore the warning about how difficult the path is for beginners. He quickly places his hand on the shiny book, stating that he is not one of those newbies. The boy says to go ahead with the choice. Hearing this, the mysterious entity begins to laugh sinisterly and loudly. Finding the boy interesting, the voice comments that it's been a long time since someone like that appeared. At this moment, the protagonist remembers a famous video from his past life, was a single-player Necromancer. In the video, this player faced a boss completely alone, just with his undead army. Now our protagonist realizes that he desperately needs that kind of power. Immediately, the system congratulates you on becoming a Necromancer. He receives the title of Beginner Necromancer and learns the Skeleton Fragment skill. With a smile on his face, the boy tests his new skill. A glowing skull fragment appears in his hand and is thrown to the ground. Upon reaching the ground, the fragment begins to break. A message informs you that a skeleton warrior consumes mana to take shape. Before the eyes of the protagonist, the creature begins to form from the ground. Quickly, the warrior skeleton finishes forming enveloped in blue flames. The boy then declares that he will be a necromancer in this life. Satisfied with the result, the beginning necromancer decides it's time to level up and looks for the training dungeon. Suddenly, a skeleton warrior loses his head. She falls rolling across the floor. Standing in a strange location are the protagonist and the skeleton. The place looks like a giant digital library. Suddenly, a blue energy begins to rotate around the place. In the midst of blue energy, someone puts their foot on the ground. Within the blue energy, the protagonist sighs. A message informs him that he has entered the beginner training dungeon. Confused, the boy realizes that the skeleton is different from the ones he knew. He then decides to check his skills window. His skill skeleton fragment is rank F, only allows you to summon one at a time. He reads the description carefully. Realizing his low proficiency, the young man concludes that he needs to increase his level urgently. With a careful look, he hears a growl approaching. From the darkness emerge 3 coal wolves. They are training monsters. The boy thinks they arrived at the right time. With a smile, he notes that wolves are fast, perfect for a test. Blue energy builds in his hand as he readies the skill. Throwing the energetic skull towards the wolves, the protagonist shouts for it to move forward. Near the wolves, the energy explodes with a strong impact. From the blue energy, a warrior skeleton materializes. He wields a sword made of bones ready to fight. With one eye glowing blue, the skeleton lets out a war cry. 3 shadowy wolves with red eyes advance menacingly through the cave. With a confident smile, the boy orders his skeletal lackey to eliminate them. Immediately, the skull advances towards the 3 ferocious canines. Surprised, the boy realizes that his performance is better than expected. This way, he will reach maximum level quickly. Unexpectedly, the warrior's bones shatter in the air to the summoner's astonishment. Confused, the albino doesn't understand what happened there. Soon after, the creature's skull falls right at his feet onto the rocky ground. Looking closely, the skull seems a little embarrassed by the awkward situation. Completely stunned, the protagonist is unable to process the bizarre scene. Noticing something is strange, he quickly opens the skill window. There it is described that the summoned creature learns from combat. Additionally, the user can define a default action mode. Relieved, the boy realizes that he forgot to set a mode. He then commands defense mode number 1 for the skull. In defensive mode, the reformed skull can only resist the wolves' attacks without fighting back. Finding this curious, the protagonist considers trying mode number 3, special action. To his surprise, a notification warns him that the skeleton warrior has started dancing wildly among his enemies. Desperate, the protagonist cries when he realizes that he is screwed. The skeleton next to him seems to scoff, saying he tried to warn you. In agony, the boy feels like he is going crazy. A notification informs you that the character cannot be deleted because the account is less than 3 months old. In addition to not being able to delete the character, he also cannot change class. To make matters worse, loan payments start the following month. The boy thinks about having another accident again. With his hand on his forehead, the young man laments why nothing works for him, especially now that it seemed like things were finally looking up. To top it off, the stupid skeleton doesn't seem to help at all either. This only makes the protagonist angrier with the creature. Angry, the boy shouts for silence from the skeleton. He then wonders how the necromancer he saw in the past life dealt with minions like that. A system window then reveals a crucial detail about the minion. The summoned creature has a learning system and learns through combat. The protagonist then recalls a key moment. When he faced the coal wolves earlier, the skeleton was just observing his actions. This was not just observing, the skeletal creature was directly learning from its movements. With a determined new look, the protagonist catches the skeleton's attention. The creature immediately turns to him, appearing attentive. The boy then says that the lackey is lucky to have a master like him. He claims that despite appearances, he was once called a genius and trained members of his guild to the top. The protagonist continues, telling the skeleton to remember a single thing in combat. The skull just tilts its head, awaiting instructions. With a fierce look, he demonstrates the first teaching. The number 1 rule of combat is, if you don't dodge, you disappear. The training then begins roughly. The skeleton is knocked down again and again, with the master shouting to try again. Even after being beaten, the skull rises again determined. She prepares for her master's next attack. By narrowly avoiding the protagonist, he avoids the skeleton's attack. The blow hits the ground with considerable force. With a powerful blow, the smaller skeleton is thrown against the ground. The force of the impact raises dust. The boy shouts at the skeleton not to stay still when hit. He needs to think about what to do next. You have to look for an opening after dodging, then attack with everything. The skeletal creature appears to have understood the rebuke. He grabs his makeshift weapon. Wielding his club, the skeleton now appears ready. He awaits the next enemy. Suddenly, two monstrous wolves appear snarling. They advance towards the bone creature. By ducking quickly, the skeleton avoids the wolf's bite. The beast passes right through him. Using his club, the skeleton manages to block the attack. He counterattacks then. From afar, the protagonist watches his servant fight. The skeleton now deals with the two barking wolves. The skeleton appears to seek approval by looking back. The protagonist asks what he is looking at. The master reminds him not to be distracted during battle. However, the boy gives a slight sideways smile. He admits that the creature's last move wasn't so bad. Various system messages appear on the screen. Skeleton fragment proficiency is increasing. Both begin to glow brightly. Satisfied, the protagonist says that the skeleton passed the test. A notification informs you that the player's level has increased. Then the scene changes to the beginner's village, located in Figus Castle. Walking through the busy village, the protagonist reflects. He thinks it was worth the effort to teach the skeleton. With a few more days of training, he will be able to complete the dungeon alone. Our white-haired protagonist thinks the real challenge begins now. First, he needs to reach level 10. Suddenly, a voice catches your attention from behind. Grabbing his shoulder, a brute asks if he shouldn't apologize. The white-haired boy realizes that they are just third-rate criminals. Angered by the waste of time, the boy wonders if he should just deal with them. Furious at the boy's side, the bandit asks what kind of person does that. He then tries to land a punch. Unexpectedly, a blond man wearing sunglasses appears and grabs the attacker's wrist. Our protagonist is surprised by the sudden appearance. With a calm smile, the blonde says that you shouldn't go around attacking people, sir. The attacker asks who the blonde is and if she is with the boy. The newcomer responds that not exactly. Our protagonist feels like he knows this man. A bead of sweat runs down the boy's face as he tries to process who is there. Angry, the bandit insists on asking who he is. The blonde calmly responds that not really. The boy's expression changes. He is now certain about that man's identity. Looking closer at the protagonist, he notices the newcomer's defined muscles. Adding this to that strange fashion for sunglasses, there is no doubt the protagonist is sure of who he is. That man is Mamoru Shev, the highest-ranked warrior from his past life. Completely shocked, the protagonist wonders what the hell he is doing there. A cry of surprise escapes. Irritated, the big blonde guy stumps on the ground looking at the other guy. Nervous, the bully tells the blonde not to get involved. He claims he was hit first. He even mentions the saying, eye for an eye. The blonde smiles uncomfortably. Suddenly, the man releases an intense red aura. Powerful energy affects everyone around you. The pressure of the aura surprises the attacker. The white-haired boy also reacts scared. With a menacing smile, the big guy says that the boy hit his palm with his fist. His eyes glow red. The blonde then asks if he should do the same to him. The bully is terrified. Someone screams, desperately revealing that that man is Mamoru Shev. They reveal that Shev is the leader of the Red Bulls Guild, one of the top 30 guilds, known for loving to fight. Shocked, the boy doesn't believe what he hears. He wonders why someone like Shev would be there. Approaching the scared boy, Shev asks what his answer will be now. Without thinking twice, the bully bows and desperately apologizes. The blonde laughs loudly. Shev says he's glad they resolved everything with words, leaving some confused. Placing his arm around the boy's shoulder, Shev asks if he's okay and says to ignore the attacker. Unexpectedly, the white-haired boy pushes Shev's hand away. He states that he will no longer need help. Surprised, the blonde watches the boy pass. This guy looked really cold. Angry, the white-haired boy quickly disappears. At that moment, the blonde felt the pressure coming from the boy. Clenching his fist, he thinks about the next meeting. Walking away, the boy promises to be someone completely different in the future. Inside a cave, the young man reflects on the great difference in power between them. The boy remembers that Shuro and Shev have similar skill levels. Aiming for revenge, he needs to become much stronger. Suddenly, a huge stone tiger roars in front of the boy. Immediately, a skeleton warrior advances against the tiger under the boy's gaze. With full force, the skeleton hits the stone beast. A message informs that the skeleton hunted the coal tiger. The system notifies you that the boy has increased his level. It took 3 days to reach level 10. The time was longer than the boy expected. Apparently, the skeleton doesn't look very happy. The young man finds his assistant's reaction strange. Congratulations on reaching level 10. The system warns that there are no more monsters in the training dungeon. Your starting symbol has been removed and rewards are coming. Finally, the boy thinks with relief. As a reward, he receives a war clock. The item has functions such as status missions, inventory map, and messenger. All are standard game tools. It had been a while since the boy felt like this. With a smile, he asks to open the status window. Through the watch, Herkin sees his updated status. Now at level 10, he is a Necromancer with his attributes renewed. A notification appears asking him to spend his attribute points. He has strength, resistance, intelligence, and mana points to distribute. With his first stat points to spend, Hirkin thinks he needs to be wise in this choice. Generally, a Necromancer would choose to increase mana or intelligence to strengthen their abilities. Contrary to logic, Hirkin decides to put all his available points into strength. Instantly, an aura surrounds him. His strength was increased by 50 points at once, reaching a total of 53 points of strength. Hirkin gives a satisfied smile with his decision. Soon after, he turns into a skeleton that is curled up on the floor. The Necromancer asks what he thinks he is doing there. The boy punches himself in the skull. Hirkin explains that he hasn't given up on being a Necromancer, which he is trying to teach her. Increasing mana or intelligence now wouldn't have much of an impact. In contrast, by increasing his strength, he can teach the skills he had at his peak. Hirkin bets everything on the skeleton's growth. Holding the skull's shoulder, he says that anyway, she just needs to focus on training now. With a smile and a thumbs up, he adds that after all, there are other ways to compensate for the lack of attributes. Sometime later, Hirkin arrives at the Plunderers Association in the Figus Castle branch. Inside the place, the Necromancer seems to be looking for something. He soon finds a letter that represents a new mission. The place quickly turns into chaos with adventurers fighting. Hirkin notes that the missions are not that good, but everyone is excited, perhaps because they are newbies. Arriving at the counter, the protagonist asks to take a look at the list of missions, leaving the old man surprised by the request. The old man allows it, but warns that these are very difficult tasks that no one wants to take on. He then questions whether the boy is confident. In fact, the missions look pretty bad from the protagonist's perspective. However, this is where your strategy comes in. Removing one of the cards, he reveals his trump card. The boy then smiles at having found what he was looking for. The chosen mission is in the Bima Mountain Cave. The objective is to eliminate all nearby monsters worth 10 gold. The bearded old man asks if he's sure. Since it's a low-level quest that's worth little, the protagonist confirms and receives the task. Completing this seemingly boring quest before level 15, he thinks to himself, it will be possible to obtain a super rare title called Prospectus. Getting titles increases attributes as shown in the example. Amateur Mage grants points in mana and intelligence. This particular Prospectus title is even better, increases attributes by percentage, 3% being intelligence and mana. In other words, this will begin your career as a broken character. The protagonist is clearly excited about the idea. Taking the first steps, he starts to move. Now with a smile on his face, he decides to start with the equipment. Arriving at the place, we saw the landscape of Bima Mountain. Suddenly, the protagonist's face changes to a serious expression, and it is revealed that he is wearing a jester outfit with bunny ears. What an incredible look. Through the forest, we see an adventurer wearing a very peculiar rabbit outfit. Very angry, the boy lets out a cry of frustration. He explains that he ran out of money after purchasing items for his skeleton, so he only got this outfit. Determined, the bunny decides that he will do the mission as quickly as possible to get new clothes. Speeding through the forest, he quickly disappears from sight. Suddenly, a hand covered in red broth appears from the ground. We soon see a seriously injured man on the ground. He desperately begs for help. Hidden in the darkness, two suspicious individuals observe the scene with sinister laughter. The scenery changes to a clear sky with glowing particles. A feeling of beginning emerges. Multi then appears, declaring the start of their adventure on Bima Mountain. Already at level 11, Multi feels very good in the game. He thinks he might even become a ranker at this rate until he hears a scream. When he turns around, he finds a boy asking for help for his friend lying on the ground. Multi asks in surprise what happened. The young man explains that they were attacked by an unknown monster. The fallen guy looks really bad and they don't have any healing potions. Multi then says he has some and offers to help. The boy thanks him, very relieved by the kindness. With your red eyes shining, the monster promises to take revenge on the knight. On the ground and seriously injured, the knight coughs a little and thanks whoever is in front of him. But both men smile mischievously, saying that they will use the knight's items in the best way. Realizing betrayal, the knight calls them cowards before being interrupted by the white-haired man. Smiling smugly, the gray-haired man responds what a fool he was for falling for that trick. A system window appears warning that the player Multi's journey has ended. His body then disappears into particles. The system informs that the player's clock has fallen. The item is left in place. Gathered with his friends, the bearded man comments on how fun it is to trick newbies and laughs at the player's reaction. With a crazy look and holding the watch, the gray one tells them to find their next prey. They are from the PK Ralph family guild. Elsewhere, a lone skeleton warrior is surrounded by monstrous wolves in a dark forest. Without wasting time, the creatures quickly advance to attack the skeleton. Observing from afar, a boy in a hood activates attack mode with a gesture. Following the order, the skeleton warrior immediately attacks enemies. With a swift swing of his sword, the skeleton easily defeats one of the monstrous wolves. Defeat more creatures, the skeleton receives 375, 366, and 379 experience. His master realizes that with a sword, wolves are no match. Confirming your decision, he thinks getting the equipment for the skeleton first was the right thing to do. A real player would do that. The protagonist wears a strange rabbit hood, showing that utility is more important than appearance. The skeleton thinks he is a poor owner, as the boy asks what he is thinking. Tired of the delay, he orders the skeleton to follow him. They need to level up quickly to get out of there. Following orders, the skull attacks with its sword. A bright light shines on impact. Suddenly, an arrow hits the skeleton's head. The boy is shocked by the surprise attack. Turning around quickly, they see who shot. The person shouts, apologizing. A group of adventurers appears. The leader scratches his head, explaining that he mistook the skeleton for a monster from afar. The leader apologizes again, but the protagonist responds that everything is fine, leaving the other confused. One scene shows an item being worn on the arm, perhaps to recover energy or mana. The boy looks at the group with a smile. He will forgive them if they compensate with a mana potion. The group admits to not having potions. They suggest an alternative, help the protagonist level up to recover mana. The protagonist asks if it's okay to do that. The leader confirms yes. After all, it was their fault and they want to make up for it. Conveniently, some lizard monsters appear in the forest, arriving just in time. The group leader explains the plan. They will weaken the monsters, and the protagonist just needs to finish. He agrees. The gray-haired man asks if his partner remembers the plan. The other quickly confirms. First, the brute will attract the creature's attention to him. Then the wizard will cast an attack buff on the monsters. He plans to target the protagonist by pretending to be a mistake. From the target's perspective, the monster advances furiously. Desperate, the white-haired boy screams, expecting the worst. The conspirators smile awaiting the result. However, they are surprised and breathe a sigh of relief. To their surprise, the protagonist is right next to a skeleton. He complains to the skull, saying it could have been bad. With a thumbs up, the boy says everything is great and asks them to continue. Enemies wonder how his summon is so strong. Suspecting that the goal level is higher than it seems, they begin to think of a new plan. Determined, they send several monsters to attack the boy at once. While the protagonist is busy with the monsters, the brute sneaks up on him. The big man then attacks with his club, trying to finish the boy. At full strength, the attack is delivered directly against the target. Shocked, the attacker realizes what happened. The protagonist managed to dodge the blow. The boy quickly retaliates, hitting the surprised enemy with a blast of blue energy. Scared, the boy sees a skeleton fighting others in the forest. Suddenly, a hand grabs the protagonist. Soon after, the blue energy skeleton appears. Wasting no time, the skeletal creature charges towards its targets. Terrified, the two try to talk, but the skeleton attacks without hesitation. The pair are thrown away by the blow, while the hooded man just watches. When approaching one of the fallen, the boy says he knows this type of person well. He accuses them of betraying those who trust them to steal everything, stating that this tactic no longer works. Desperately, the target begs forgiveness and offers items, but the hooded man just cries for him. Raising the gun, the protagonist declares that he no longer trusts people. A notification appears informing the elimination of the player Ralph. 8 vigils were left behind, leaving the boy surprised. With a smile, the young man decides that he will make good use of the items, starting with the clothes. Meanwhile, the skeleton finishes the work with the other member of the group. Turning to his servant, the hooded man asks if he would like something for himself. Then the boy extends his hand, emitting blue energy towards the skull. With this, the skeleton is now equipped with some basic items and a sword. The skeleton seems happy with its new look. Our prota then comments that appearance is not important in a game. Striking a pose, the protagonist states that the important thing is the interior, leaving the skeleton confused by the situation. With a smile on his face, he comments that war watches were very valuable. Selling another player's war clock grants a random item from your inventory. Rare items may appear, such as pants that give 5 more mana and intelligence, or even swords that give 10 more mana. Even skill books like Demon's Curse can appear. Coins are also a possibility, and the prota goes crazy with happiness. He says that thanks to these items, he was able to make something new. It ended up being a Haho mask that was ready quicker than expected. Whitehair then reveals that he will record his gameplay. That's why creating a good identity is very important now. The idea is that everyone in the guild wears a Haho mask so they can easily go viral. Excitedly, he then suggests that the guild name be Haho Mask. The young man admits that he thought about continuing with a completely different identity. However, he didn't want other people to steal his things again. Therefore, the mask now glows with power. Determined, he says he will use this to prove he was right all along. Then he puts on the mask, which now glows with menacing red eyes. In front of an imposing rock formation, a blue portal marks the entrance to a dungeon. Passing through the portal, the protagonist and his skeleton companion enter the cave dungeon of Bima Mountain. Inside the dark cave the boy ponders, he believes that blue werewolves inhabit this place. Confident with your new equipment, he believes the dungeon is now possible. Your goal is to complete it in 10 minutes. Motivated, the duo advances to the cave ready for action. A few hours pass while the skeleton appears calm. The protagonist is on the floor exhausted, wondering why. Surprisingly, the cave is empty. Frustrated, the young man questions the total absence of monsters. This is very strange, thinks the boy. There should be a notification if the dungeon has already been completed. He thinks it's a system bug. Suddenly, the protagonist has an idea. They both observe an ominous purple energy rising from the ground. Quickly, the energy expands, forming a large purple vortex before them. A toast notification appears. He discovered an instant dungeon called the Stage. Now he understands the lack of monsters. These special dungeons appear randomly. Disable the normal dungeon until they are completed. They are twice as difficult but offer superior rewards. The big problem is revealed. Either the player completes the instant dungeon or dies inside with no return. Thinking logically, it would be better to give up. A failure would result in a 2-day lockout. Doing other missions seems safer, however. His determination surpasses logic. The notification confirms your entry to the stage. Surrounded by a sinister purple aura, the protagonist declares that he just needs to clean the place. Beside him floats a small skeleton. With a concentrated look, the adventurer realizes that he is in a giant arena. It looks like an old coliseum. The masked man confirms that it is a coliseum and admits that it is a little scary. He wonders what comes next. Suddenly, the protagonist feels something bad approaching. A feeling of danger takes over him. Before them, a huge and threatening creature appears, a giant werewolf with a furious look. A window reveals the monster's identity is a corrupted werewolf of unknown level. Before finishing your question about the monster being corrupted, the protagonist is attacked by the creature. With a powerful blow, the werewolf throws the masked man away. The skeleton observes the scene. The impact is strong and the young man lets out a grunt of pain. Amidst the raised dust, the little skeleton advances quickly. He will face the monster. The skeletal warrior grows ready for battle. Meanwhile, the protagonist gives a small smile. Even trapped in the broken wall, the masked man begins to laugh loudly. He realizes that corrupted monsters are linked to the main quest and thinks he is lucky. Coming out of the rubble, he calls out to his skeleton companion. The young man warns that if they don't defeat the creature, with intense gaze and shining eyes, he completes the sentence. Today they will be without dinner. Motivated by hunger or the mission, the duo advances together. They go after the corrupted werewolf. In combat position, the skeleton stares at its opponent with glowing eyes. Quickly, the skull misses the protagonist. Bouncing against the purple light, the white-haired boy throws himself at the beast. The creature then roars, trying to place a curse on their target. Dark energy begins to emanate from the silver combatant's hand. Using the demonic curse, he imbues his sword with sinister power. Surprised, the beast is enveloped in the purple aura of the newly cast curse. With the curse spreading, the werewolf retreats from the imminent attack. Screaming in pain, the demonic curse reduces the target's stats by 10%. Satisfied, the young man thinks the skill is not bad for a first use. Growling furiously, the creature now releases intense reddish energy. Moving forward with everything, the monster tries to take the protagonist by surprise. Irritated, the corrupted werewolf nullifies all negative effects. The boy notes that it wouldn't be that simple. Giving a confident smile, he was saving a trick for later but decides to use it now. With red eyes, the boy activates a mysterious slot on his device. Enveloped in a shadowy blue aura, the protagonist prepares to unleash immense power. Energy condenses quickly, forming a glowing, unstable orb. Suddenly, the orb of energy transforms, taking the form of black armor. In full armor and wreathed in blue flames, the warrior shows himself ready for action. This is called Slot On, one of the unique features of the Warlord class. When a player activates Slot On, an intense glow often appears. Temporarily, they draw strength from the world of warlords, manifesting in improved form. This enhanced form varies greatly depending on the player, precisely because it varies a lot from person to person. Many users often call it the so-called Supreme Mode. The protagonist displays a confident smile in his new form. With the visor down and fully prepared, he dares any enemy to appear. In response, a bestial creature appears roaring fiercely. Without wasting time, the beast advances against the little warrior that remains firm. Emanating a reddish energy, the monster attacks at full speed. Suddenly, it's not just one, but several beasts attacking coordinated with energy claws. The masked man quickly dodges a powerful blow. The impact shatters the surrounding rocks. The red energy collides violently with the ground. Pieces of stone fly everywhere, showing the strength of the attack. As expected of a boss, his speed and power are too much. The masked man thinks that if he is hit 3 times, it will be the end of him. The werewolf beast roars, showing its fury, but the protagonist just gives a confident smile. With a blue aura surrounding his body, the masked man quickly advances against the enemy. The blow hits the werewolf squarely. The creature appears to feel the impact of the attack and screams. That's what makes the game fun, he thinks with a smile. Soon after, his expression changes to surprise. Suddenly, the creature attacks with more force, creating a shock wave that throws the protagonist backwards. Realizing the situation, the masked man remembers that he forgot about the monster's state of fury. The werewolf looks at him menacingly. Your skeleton partner suddenly appears, asking if the masked man also forgot something. Now together the protagonist and the skeleton face the beast. The skeletal minion prepares a blue energy attack. Shouting to your companion, the masked man asks them to use the movement they practiced, and the skeleton confirms. Seeing the coordination of the two, the werewolf seems to notice that something different is coming. Sliding across the floor in perfect synchronization, the pair move forward to surround the giant monster. Simultaneously, the two attack the werewolf, using blue energy attacks in concert against the beast. The protagonist and his warrior skeleton complete the werewolf. The system confirms that the hunt was a success. With the ability deactivated, the protagonist smiles, satisfied with the result. Suddenly, a golden light begins to rotate intensely in the place. A letter appears detailing a new mission. The objective is to defeat monsters in Bima Mountain Cave for 10 gold. Several notifications appear on the screen. The minion's skeleton fragment ability goes up to rank E. The protagonist also wins 20,865 gold. Along with this, he obtains a werewolf's skull and skin. The boy is very happy with the instance rewards. Soon after, he receives the corrupted tracker's necklace. This item is of the single chronicle type and increases all stats by 18. However, the necklace cannot be exchanged and requires a specific title. Surprised, the protagonist recognizes the rarity of the item. Even though it is not tradable, he knows that the unique chronicle is a level above common unique items. Then an idea appears in the protagonist's mind. He wonders about the name Corrupted Tracker and what it could mean. The system then informs that 3 new titles have been registered for the boy. The first title is Promising Newcomer, increasing intelligence and magic by 3%. The second is Challenger of Heroes, which grants 3 more resistances. The boy recognizes that the title of hero came from clearing the dungeon alone. Finally, the third title is revealed as Corrupted Tracker. This leaves the protagonist quite surprised. The shock comes from him recognizing the Corrupted Tracker. This is precisely the initial title of the first chapter of the main mission called Corruption Count. This main quest is explained as being the central plot. It forms the backbone of the Warlord game universe. Because of the extraordinary rewards, all players want to get involved. It is the most prominent content in Warlord. The protagonist reflects on his past life, barely reaching the 4th chapter. Now he has already unlocked the start of the main quest so early. The boy realizes that this can't just be luck. With a huge smile, the protagonist celebrates his luck. He quickly leaves the game. In the real world, the sun sets over the horizon. A report informs that the Hydra Guild has entered the final chapter. The goal is to finish in 3 months. Sitting in front of the computer, the boy watches the news without saying anything. Crying and with a bruise on his mouth, he realizes he was unlucky. Banging his head on the table, he laments that someone is already in the final chapter. Now he will achieve nothing. What a waste. Discouraged, he thinks about giving up and focusing on the next chapter. However, an idea pops into your mind. The boy quickly wonders if this would really be an opportunity. Right now, the whole world is focused on the Count's corruption. After all, it is the first main mission, and it is about to be completed. He then thinks about what would happen if a video about the Count's corruption was released now. Opinions would be absurd, success would be guaranteed. Luckily recorded all of his gameplay. Now you just need to edit and post directly to YouTube. Editing is fundamental and cannot be done by just anyone. Therefore, he will do the work himself. After all, he was known as the god of editing in his past life. As we eat, we see a girl with pink hair named Romini. She seems intrigued by something on her cell phone. On the cell phone, we see a request for video editing from Dungeon Clear. The sender is Herkin and he is only level 15. Fiddling with her cell phone, a girl with pink hair laughs. She doubts the video of a level 15 clearing a dungeon is any good. Your bet is that it's just a rich newbie looking to show off. Suddenly, the girl jumps out of her chair. Your eyes widen in shock as you find what you were looking for. With shining eyes, the girl exclaims that she has found her muse. Her name is Romane, a freelance video editor with the nickname Hellmouth. In the night city, a woman watches through the window of her building. She is identified as an executive. An assistant hurries to ask if he has been called. The executive informs that a video has just emerged about the Count's corruption. Handing over the tablet, the executive comments that it is interesting. In it, a level 15 single-handedly defeated a corrupted werewolf. The man recognizes this video. Adjusting his glasses, the man says his team has already seen the video. He downplays it by saying that the werewolf's level was low. The executive interrupts him saying she liked it. With a confident smile, the woman declares that she wants this. She then orders them to bring the person responsible for the video to her. Her name is Che Silian. It is #1 in the world business ranking and successor to Grupo Travao. In another context, she is also known by her nickname. In the world of warlords, she is the Thunder Queen Sira. Meanwhile, the protagonist faces two opponents. One of them asks what decision he's talking about. The boy takes a strong blow from his enemies. A red broth begins to flow, indicating the damage received.